I'm killing just a second, but I just want to reach out and see how everyone's doing. We would love to have your questions and your comments in the comment section. And if we don't get to yours today, we will get to it. Someone will answer it for you and we'll reach out. So make sure you're staying connected to us. And today is really exciting for me. So first of all, welcome to the Relentless Courage Show. And I am just thrilled to introduce today's guest, because if there's anyone who knows about overcoming and finding peace in chaos, it's Dee Eastman, my dear friend, and what it means to become a strong advocate for your own life. And I met Dee when Daniel and Dr. Hyman and Dr. Mehmet Oz were asked to help create something called the Daniel Plan, and Dee was the director. She took over this whole project at Saddleback Church, and I was one of the coaches. I just helped with some of the recipes and things like that. But Dee is just an amazing human, and I just love her, and I love her story. Her passion and joy come from bringing out the best in others and creating clear pathways to transform wellness, build resilience, and optimize well-being in body, mind, and soul. With 30 years of experience in wellness and behavior change, she's had the honor to work alongside world-renowned experts in their field, which I can definitely attest to. I've seen this, and it's been amazing. For the past decade, she's directed the Daniel Plan, an international healthy lifestyle program that has grown to reach millions, spanning 140 countries. And now she has the honor to be the co-founder of a program called Rise, which I spoke for, and it's just a wonderful program. I'm going to have her talk to you about that. But it's a health initiative that customizes coaching, resources, and programs to create a stronger you. So welcome, Dee. It's such an honor.
So delighted to be with you, Tan. I really, really love the topic of your upcoming memoir and all this whole series that you're doing. So couldn't be more pleased to be with you.
Oh, thanks, Dee. And you've always been so supportive. And I just, working with the Daniel Plan and doing what we did was just one of the highlights of my life, actually. It was just really amazing to see so many people get well, which is part of my inspiration for writing my book and doing this show. So I've got my new book coming out in January. And the show Relentless Courage is sort of based around that and everything that, I went through to overcome. But as long as I've known you, there are a couple things in your story here that I didn't know. And I think it's going to be just something that a lot of people can relate to. So I know you gave birth and you've raised this incredible family, a huge family. You've got 5 kids and you're living, you're living this amazing life with your career and your family and all these things. That's what people see on the outside. That's certainly what I saw. But you've experienced a lot of pain, and oh boy, I have a visitor.
I might have a visitor or two also.
Okay, well, instead of me turning around, he's just going to be there. So tell us about your story and what happened with, I know you've had, this amazing thing to overcome with your daughters and even some of your other kids. So just tell us your story.
Okay, so my husband and I got married right out of college. We had a 5-year time just to be married, and then we could not wait to have children. And my very first pregnancy went really, really well. In fact, like at month 7, I was out bowling with our youth group, feeling on top of the world, working full time. But that night I went into having some contractions. The contractions really picked up. I was like at 31 weeks. Went into the hospital and gave birth shortly after, very premature, and found out that there was severe genetic problems with my daughter. Her name was Kirsten Danielle. But I think for a young couple, mid-20s, very naive in my spiritual life and my personal faith, and at that point kind of felt like, really what faith would do for you in your life. Again, very naively, was A plus B equals C. Faith in God, trust in his plan, and you're going to have like an abundant life. But I think I thought that abundant life meant an easy life. I didn't think my first child was going to be born with severe genetic abnormalities. Kirsten was in the hospital for many months, and we went from one surgery to another surgery to another surgery. We went from breathing tubes to feeding tubes to the stomach not working, the breathing not working, so much so that now they thought that she was blind. And it was just like, I just want to say, gosh, it's like over 30 years ago, overwhelming. And we tried everything. We tried every medical approach. We had people come in and pray over her, and we would look at her numbers, wondering if she would grow in her oxygenation. And God does heal sometimes, but in this instance, Kirsten was not healed. At 4 months, I was home and got the call. You've got to come to the hospital right away. We're injecting her with medication to keep her heart going, but she's in heart failure, and we're just hoping she makes it until you get her to the hospital. We were living in Huntington at the time. We went to Long Beach Memorial, arrived on the scene. I got to see those beautiful big brown eyes one more time and hold my little girl, and she passed away. Super unexpected. We, like I said, had a picture-perfect pregnancy up until that night of the premature labor. But what do you do with all that pain and heartache? And again, a really young, naive couple, certain expectations of the way your family is going to look. And honestly, I didn't know what to do with the pain of all of it.
I can't even imagine going through what you went through. I just can't imagine it. I've seen that in the hospital. I've seen it a lot as a trauma nurse and as a neurosurgical ICU nurse and going to the pediatric units. But that's always been the one thing that I just sort of could not wrap my brain around was the children.
Yeah, and I think there was so much pain, so much disillusionment, so much disappointment in my own spiritual journey, and I didn't know what to do with all of it. And so, you know what I did? I didn't do anything with it, and I pushed it all down. I put a happy smile, Pollyanna face on. I still navigated my life, but deep inside, I had never experienced that type of grief or loss or really uncertainty and questions of why would God allow that in my life, which I know not everyone asked, but I really asked at the time and began to continue navigating through. I think a year later, we gave birth to a beautiful boy, Joshua Philip Eastman, and then 3 years later, a beautiful girl, Brianna Marie Eastman. And I think that helped keep that pain. It was still there, but I didn't feel it as much. I wasn't touching it every day because there was a lot of happiness in my life. And then we moved to Chicago for a 1-year internship. And Brianna was only 9 months of age, hadn't ovulated yet. I'm being super personal here, but skipped a cycle and thought I could not be pregnant. I haven't even ovulated. I have a 3-year-old, a 9-month-old. You're just, getting in the rhythm of things. Take a pregnancy test, and there was that plus. I'm like, okay, here we go. Baby number 3 in the middle of an internship year. In the Midwest, all my family was in Southern Cal, and thought, okay, here we go. But the real surprise came at 5 months where I went in for a routine ultrasound. And mind you, things are behind medically then. And, we're talking 28 years ago. But the doctor literally said, a doctor I'd never met, ultrasound person. Okay, here's baby number 1. Here's baby number 2. Here's baby number 3. Let me see if I can find baby number 4. And then he literally said, oh, no, just 3. And he had no bedside manner whatsoever. He said, let me let the dust settle in this room, and I'll see you back in here in 10 minutes. It's a moment, Tana, I will never forget.
And you weren't trying. This wasn't in vitro where you suspected this could happen.
Oh, no, complete surprise. Internship year, not making a salary, 1 year off work. We wanted to be like church planters or at a church in the Midwest to learn how to go and give back to the whole world. And we get pregnant with triplets, not even trying. And it was just quite a moment when I looked up at the screen. Right next to me was my husband, and on his lap was Josh, who was 3.5. And Brianna, who was, 9, 10, 11 months at that point. And then there was my ultrasound screen with 3 babies.
Oh, wow.
Identical triplet girls. And we knew at that point that God really had a sense of humor. But I think the big news is he said, and by the way, you're 1 centimeter dilated and you need to be at hospital bed rest tomorrow.
Oh.
And mind you, we had only been in the Midwest for 4 months. We didn't have our friendship network. We didn't have our family. They put me at a level 3 high-risk hospital because of the nature of the triplet pregnancy. And the next day, people really wrapped around us in our community. They helped with Josh and Brianna at home. And I spent the next 8 weeks at hospital bed rest with 3 little girls.
Wow. And so you've got these 3 girls. I've met them. They're amazing. And so, but that's not the end of your story.
Right. Well, what happened with the triplet pregnancy is there was the triplet delivery there was a number of problems at my delivery. I was in my hospital, like I said, a high level 3 hospital for a high risk pregnancy. And I was on a lot of medication to sustain not having the labor return. And in that moment at 28 weeks, I really felt like I was going into labor, but the medical team wasn't sure, didn't call the doctor right away. And literally, I was not in the delivery room. There wasn't a doctor present, and Melody was born. So there was a lot of medical mishaps and medical errors at the birth. They gave me drugs to sustain Michelle and Megan from being birthed because they didn't want them to go through the birth canal with having such little permeable brains at 28 weeks. But then because they took so long to call the doctor, again, a lot of medical errors, but Megan and Michelle were born with oxygen deprivation, and both are diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And I think I went into that pregnancy like, God, you really took it out of me. That leveled me with Kirsten. Please don't let anything happen with my daughters. And I think I just want to say the SHIT hit the fan when the triplets were born. There was no pushing it down. It was like a volcano erupting. Like whatever anger or disappointment or bitterness. I was not a happy Pollyanna camper. I would go into that hospital when you give birth at 28 weeks, your babies barely look like babies. They're like 1.5 to 2.5 pounds. Brett's wedding ring literally fit all the way up Melody's calf, over her knee, up to her thigh.
No.
I mean, you're like, yeah. And then I think with the cerebral palsy diagnosis and all the ensuing medical needs that happen, I think the good part in it is just it allowed me to level up and be honest with my real emotional life, which ultimately allowed me to heal. Bearing it, I just want to say anger or depression is anger turned inward. I had so much depression I was dealing with, but I also had so many bottled up emotions. And I guess that for those that are listening on this, our time together today, it's so hard to face emotions that are difficult, but I want to say it's much harder not to.
Yeah.
Because it comes out somewhere, whether it's migraines or back pain or gut issues or depression or anxiety. And so the triplets birth almost gave me the permission to just really explore what was really there. And I think even in the mystery of my spiritual life, God meeting me in that place, and then true healing really being able to begin to unfold. I want to just say a step at a time, like a little step at a time in my life.
Wow. You have overcome so much. I mean, so much. That's a story I think that a lot of people can't quite process. And I'm reading some of the comments, and people are just being so supportive and so sweet. And someone said, "Oh my God, I just have tears right now." And I mean, I think any mother that's just overwhelming. And I don't even know how you would deal with the grief and loss at that point. That's just amazing. And it's amazing that you finally felt that permission to do so.
Yeah, I felt like during those years in Chicago, I decided I'm going to do this differently. I'm not going to hide my true feelings. I'm going to come face to face with them. We met with a mentor, my husband and I, and they said, we really just want you to finish well this race that you're on, of just the life that you're living. We want you to finish well, and really encourage getting into therapy. So I jumped into therapy. I got support. I was really honest with a friend group. I read a book called Telling Secrets by Frederick Beakner. He's an author that has passed away now, but it was his autobiography of really being authentic in his life, with his close friends, with his circle, and his relationship spiritually. And it really encouraged me that healing would be possible. He had a line in his book that he said tragedy could be a means of grace that he might have never learned any other way. And I felt like one key to my healing with the triplets was being honest, was getting support, was not pushing it down. It was also the role of forgiveness in my life. Forgiveness of myself for having a life that felt really messy at times, for having emotions that were really messy. I think my husband looked at me during that time and wondered, who am I married to? Like, you're always this really nice, sweet person. There was one time I was in the car and the windows were rolled up, and I don't know what tipped me off, but all the anger was like right there. Everything was coming up. And I just started yelling in the car, and the things that came out of my mouth were terrible. And he's looking over at me like, who is this? I look in the Old Testament and I look at the psalmist, and he's like, the psalmist was doing it too. He's like, God, where are you? Why have you forsaken me? And he's spewing it. He's letting it out. And then he comes back to being able to have a clearer perspective. So lots of that went on during that time. Forgiveness of myself. I think forgiveness of others. Going back to that medical team, it probably took me over a year to work through the bitterness and anger that I felt towards that medical experience. I role played it out in my group therapy. I journaled about it. I cried about it. But you know what? Ultimately, they were human. They were doing the best job that they could do. They never intended to have medical errors happen. And it wasn't helping my life any, keeping that level of bitterness inside. And I went back and had a face-to-face meeting, Brett and I, with that team, and extended forgiveness and so much of a watershed of tears. And that allowed me to move on. And I think forgiveness of just God. I know that might sound weird, but
I totally understand.
Just to be open to the mystery. Like, yeah. I don't understand what you allow. Myself up. A plus B doesn't equal C, but you say you promised me the gift of your presence and the gift of your love to accompany me through any storm, and I'm going to count on you for that. So that's kind of where I went with that. I also felt like I really took it up a notch of what I needed to do for my own self-care and how I needed to take care of my life. Because just having triplets and how taxing that was on my body.
Oh my gosh. And the hormonal imbalance and the physical stress on your body.
Yeah. And I got in certain strides and certain components as I took it up a notch. But another whole season, if you want to invite me back for another half hour sometime, would be really looking at mental health and how that can impact. Because we had a diagnosis of a mental health issue within our family a few years into the triplet. So I had kind of caught somewhat of a stride. But it was this new diagnosis and the chaos that it brought and the hurt and anguish, I want to say, was almost worse than Kirsten and the triplets combined.
Oh my gosh.
Because with a death, it's terrible, but you grieve it, and over years you make peace with it. Even though 32 years later, I still shed some tears about Kirsten. The cerebral palsy is terrible. But you get community support, and an inch at a time, a day at a time, you find ways to navigate. But mental illness, if it's not treated, is almost just a thief for the person affected, and for all of those that love them. And it was that situation in my life, combined with just having 5 kids and all of that, that really was my first time that I really had a huge bout with depression. With the triplets and Kirsten, it was grief and loss. But with the mental illness diagnosis, it was a whole depression. I went through 1 year of like running a marathon, being on top of my game, leading a group of 300 women at Saddleback Church in a study called The Journey, and just really thriving in my marriage and all of that. But the snowball effect and all of the ins and outs of the effects of the mental health diagnosis and the severe difficulty of it, one day I just woke up and I felt like I couldn't get out of bed. No. Like, how does that happen? Going from this person over here to that. But the level of stress and me not understanding the gut-brain connection of the stress that was occurring in my brain, then I started having like complete IBS symptoms. And then, 6-8 months later, a complete depression. I mean, the type of depression where I would set the alarm to get up in the morning. I would get my kids to school. I would come home and sleep for hours, and I would set my alarm again to go pick them up. And then I would just try to somehow stumble through the afternoon routine and the evening routine. And it was then that the self-care routine had to be like, okay, This is your life. There's that Mary Oliver quote. What are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? And I was like, I better get some help. I better get some help. I went and got a little more therapy. I started really understanding. I let my gut be off balance way too long. If I knew now if I would have known then what I know now, I would have fixed my gut right away and I wouldn't have had the severity of the depression. But I didn't know. So I started changing my food. I started moving regularly. I started taking some supplements. I started journaling and doing a lot of gratitude and sacred pauses. I was really authentic with my feelings, with my friends and my community. But those things wove together like a tapestry in my life. They began to bring healing. And I just want to say they brought such hope in such a dark, dark place, having this kind of body, mind, soul approach to healing.
You know, I think most people, I'm reading the comments and there's a lot of people who are relating to what you're saying. And I think any one of those things would be enough to level someone. But to have all of those things is astounding. And I also have experienced depression to the point where I can't get out of bed. And I just at some point wondered, why am I wasting oxygen on the planet? My life has no purpose, no meaning. Why am I here? And I actually began to question God and wonder if he was even like, it's like, if there is a God, he doesn't love me. So I'm moving on.
I can relate, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, it didn't work, obviously. That didn't work for me. It's like, how's that working out for you? It did not work well. And God never let me go. He just never let me out of his sights. And for that, I'm grateful. But the thing I know about you, like I said, I didn't know some of this stuff, Dee, and I've known you for a long time. I knew some of it. I didn't know all of it. Nobody would know this. You have done this. You are such an inspiration to literally millions of people. And you've done so much to make such a difference in the world. And that's the part that I think, everybody listening is just like, whoa, how did she survive all of that? But you didn't just survive. You turned it around. That was pain to purpose for sure. So, how would you say helping other people or starting what you've done? I know you have a program, Rise, we're going to talk about and explain that to people, but how does that help you heal?
Well, it helps me heal in such a big way. I feel like the things that I have learned, like this body, mind, soul approach, like really taking care of myself physically, like what fuels my body with my food and my movement, what really helps my mindset. I've done a lot of CBT. I've done the is it true question, the 4 questions that I really was imparted so much because of you and your husband, which radically changed the way I think, like having clear thinking, accurate thinking, taking more sacred pauses in the day, the role of gratitude and journaling, like those things became such lifelines for me. I went through a program that really encouraged you to book out your AM and PM routine. Like, what are the bookends of your day? Like, get so clear on what really fuels and replenishes. Like, look at your body, look at your mind, look at your soul, look at your spirit. And what things really fuel your life and revitalize your spirit and give you energy, boost your mood, help your sleep. Like, get so crystal clear on those. But that's not enough. Then it's like, when am I going to put those into my day? And for me, it's like the AM routine and the PM routine. I'm going to have some weave throughout my day. But really bookending those, I can really count on that AM and PM routine. That really I look at those as like my rhythm of grace. And I just want to say, for those of you that are feeling like, man, right now I'm hitting some challenges of my own, I want to say the time you need to be most committed to this AM, PM routine, to these rhythms of grace in your life, is when you feel like it the least. It's on your worst days. It's when you don't even want to get out of bed, when the pillow is heavy and you just want to put the couch or the blankets over your head, or you want to lay on the couch and eat bonbons and a double cheeseburger. Those are the days you need to go, okay, remind me, let me refocus, like what refuels my life. And because it's been such a lifeline for me, to be able to give the gift of it away has been amazing. Through the Daniel Plan, through now an initiative that we started a year ago called Rise, a body, mind, soul approach to healthy living. Honestly, we do a coaching call every Monday for our coaching community. And it's like the favorite part of my whole week. Because I get to, last night, my husband, we were on a call with our small group. And I said, oh, let me tell you something I'm learning from a book I was reading. And I brought out an excerpt and I shared it with the group. And after the call, he was like, you were always learning. And I said, I know, I love it.
Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
love to learn. I love to grow. It helps me, but then it's not just helping me. I think it's the pain to purpose is like, let me be able to give it away and let me see someone else benefit from it, because it's been so tried and true in my own life. Through the depths of despair of my worst seasons in life, this kind of daily rhythm of grace, weaving a body, mind, soul approach has been like a lifeline. And I want to say, on any given morning, I can wake up flat as a doornail because of COVID, or the political scene, or the racial injustices, and all of the above, and the fires, and the hurricane.
Right? Can we just keep going?
I feel like, come on. Some mornings I wake up and I'm ready to go, and other mornings I am just like, oh, it's a tidal wave. And you know what? Like, I have a couple things that I do in my morning, but the first things I do is I connect spiritually and I write out some gratitudes, and then I go for a run or a hike or some type of workout. Just that little routine can take a flat of a doornail girl and be like ready to rock and roll.
I could not like relate to that more. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's one of the reasons people often ask why I picked a warrior. Like, that sounds hard. Why is that my metaphor? Why is that sort of my image that in the books that we write, our Brain Warriors Way podcast, everything's about a warrior. It's because when I was so down and out at that point where I just really wished I would die, I realized, like, I'm such a victim. I'm so weak right now. So what's the opposite of that? What is the opposite of what I am? And it was a warrior. Like, that's what I came up with. I'm like, those guys are like always like ready to go, even when they don't want to, even when it's hard, even when they're hurt, even when they're tired. Their training is so intense. Their mindset is so strong. Like, that's what I wanted. And that's why I adopted that. I love that. So I love what you said, that's when you need to do it the most, is when you're the weakest.
Yes. And I want to say, like, your warrior mindset is kind of rubbed off of me. And I would say, if I were to think of a word or a couple words of what I like to move towards in my idea, it would be of a warrior and an overcomer. I should have worn it. A friend gave me a necklace and it has like a long thing that says warrior. But the way I approach my workouts or my food or my mindset or any of that, when you have a mindset of, hey, I'm going to be the resilient one, I'm going to be an overcomer, I'm going to be a warrior, you're very intentional about the things that are going to really replenish your life. And I think that makes a really big difference.
Oh, absolutely. Wow. I just like, that story was incredible. And to see what you're doing now, I've actually spoken for your new Rise program, and I love it. You and Sean are amazing together. And it's to take all that pain and put it into helping other people. I don't know that there's a better way. In my mind, there's not a better way to heal. It's sort of what I did too with my writing my story, which was painful. It was hard to do, but it gave me a more balanced view of everything. So when I took the time to write everything in detail, some of those really chaotic, crazy times that I'd been sort of angry about in the past, and I really had to interview people and look at the whole thing and take a bird's eye view of it, it really gave me an adult's perspective to pain that I felt so many years ago and helped balance it out. And I would strongly recommend to people who are listening right now, that's why journaling is so helpful. But when you journal, try to do it from this perspective of getting, like, interview people in your family, and try not to like say anything, let them talk, because sometimes it's hard because those were painful moments, but it can just be so powerful. So I know this is wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's been so healing in my life. I wanted to read one quote that's been super. I went back to quotes that I read that I wrote, and I went back to some of my journals prior to this interview. And a quote that meant a lot to me during that time and still does is from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, famous author that wrote on death and dying. She said, when you come to the edge of all the light that you know, and you're about to step into the darkness of the unknown, faith is knowing that one of two things will happen for you. There will be something solid for you to stand on, or you will be taught to fly.
Wow, I love that. That is amazing. Dee, you are so incredible. So I want to make sure people know where they can find you. What's the best way for people to find you?
They can go to risetogethertoday.com, and we have a healthy living program on there. The best part about it is we have a detox program, we have ongoing coaching community, we have workshops, but we have a 74-page wellness renewal guide that you can get just by going on and downloading.
Yeah.
Stuff for like the habits of happiness, 3-day reset, all of that, body, mind, soul. So check it out there, risetogethertoday.com. We have social pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter with the same name, Rise Together Today. And if you want to email me personally, if you send something to team@Rise Together Today, I would be glad to answer you and hear your story.
You've got a lot of comments and questions, so I'm going to answer some of them. We'll forward some of them to you.
Great, please.
They're really amazing, and we didn't get a chance to answer them today, but I wanted you to just tell that story because it's just so powerful for people who have actually been struggling and really going through a lot. So if you need to reach Dee, she told you how to reach her. And if you are struggling, please don't hesitate to reach out for help. If you really need professional help, I would just highly recommend, where's my number? The number, I want to get
on the screen right now.
There it is. So please call 1-844-818-0616. If you just, really feel like you need more help, you need medical intervention, that is a way to reach one of our professionals at Amen Clinics. You can go to TanaAmen.com as well. We have so many resources for you, and everyone has this idea that they're all very expensive. They're not necessarily. I mean, yes, if you want to see a doctor, there's a charge there, but there are so many resources we have. Dee, and I worked with Dee personally, so I can attest to that we have that we want to give away to you to make you well. So you can use any of those resources to help. And I'm so grateful that you came on, Dee, and I want to have you on again because I feel like we have so much more we can talk about. So we can talk about Rise a little more on the next visit. So please stay tuned for next week. We have another incredible guest. And if Dee will be willing, we will have her on again.
Well, thank you so much, Tana. You are a warrior for your health. You've been such an inspiration in my life and continue to be in thousands and thousands and thousands of others. So thank you. And it was delightful to be with you today.
Likewise, my friend. You're amazing.
You're amazing too. Well, thank you so much, Tana.